once again, it looks like Cody's caught between the rock and a hard place. AEW might be getting in the Mone. And the savior of TNA has been kicked to the curb this week on Wrestling with the Business.
Welcome back to your weekly installment of Wrestling with the Business. I'm the varsity athlete, Jeremy Baudet, and with me, as always, is the professor, Matt Lambert. This is episode 44. Did you think we'd make it this far?
Not at all.
Neither did I. Not at all. Episode 44. So much going on. There have been so many shakeups in the world of professional wrestling in the last week. I cannot believe how much has happened. Cody and Rock, Scott D'Amore, Mercedes Moné. It's like, are we hitting every name that we could possibly touch on except for he who should not be named?
Voldemort?
No, not him. No. Let's jump right into it with something. Let's go outside WWE and AEW because we're going to be spending a lot of time with them. Let's go outside that world. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Our head is back above water on Twitter /X. We've been doing great. The fall of Vince McMahon has been doing quite well viewership-wise. Have you been watching?
Absolutely.
What do you think?
It's disgusting.
Put your rubber gloves on, but dig in deep. It's actually getting very interesting now. We're talking about the end of the story. We're going to wrap everything up, talk about the fallout. So check those out. Those will be dropping every day through tomorrow. I think those will be dropping.
Last episode tomorrow's.
And then we're going to be back into the old routine, assuming there aren't any more interesting lawsuits that drop. So please check those out after you're done watching this one. So, Matt, who's Dwayne Wilson?
I have no idea.
Dwayne Wilson.
This was a weird one.
So Dwayne Wilson is this, I don't even know how to describe him, writer, professional wrestling performer, guy, person of
fanfic.
He's
who knows?
He's about as famous as I think you and I are in the world of professional wrestling right now.
Hey, we have more Twitter followers than we are following.
We do, and thank God I had to clean the ship out a little bit too this week. He keeps filing these plagiarism lawsuits against both WWE and AEW, which struck me as very interesting because it's interesting to see them on the same side of a particular topic.
That's true.
That was kind of weird. Imagine having WWE/TKO and AEW in the same, just try to imagine Triple H and Tony Khan sitting at the same table.
The defendant's
in defense against somebody else attacking them. Anyways, Wilson is claiming basically that all his good ideas have been stolen and that it has prevented him from being successful. I haven't read the lawsuit. I don't know what specific claims he's making.
Haven't you gotten enough of reading lawsuits at this point?
He's asking for $250 million. Well, what makes this lawsuit particularly interesting for me is that it keeps getting, it's like the thing that won't die. It keeps getting resurrected. It goes in front of a judge in Ohio, and a judge goes, this is bullcrap, I'm kicking it out. And then a couple of months later, it gets resurrected again due to some weird technicality or whatever, and it gets looked at again, and then a judge throws it out, and then it gets resurrected. This is like the third time it's been resurrected. So we'll have to see what happens. He's asking for $250 million, but he claims that he was in talks with Bullet Club to start his own independent promotion with them, similar to kind of how AEW got its start, although I don't know which billionaire is going to be backing him.
And which members of Bullet Club was he talking to?
I don't know, but it's interesting, and I could easily see it leaking into a storyline here or there, especially if the story starts to get some legs. I mean, this one has really stuck around way longer. This should have been thrown out forever ago. It doesn't seem very legitimate to me. Moving on, NJPW, obviously Jack Perry, big name, signed to NJPW. He's going to be at the Windy City Riot in Chicago in April. NJPW doesn't come to the U.S. very often.
Not really. They've been venturing more and more trying to build that following.
And they're doing it, and I will say, and I don't know if he's a draw or not, this is interesting in comparison. They've sold 4,500 tickets so far to that show. Chicago's a wrestling town.
Yeah. And it's a hardcore wrestling town, so they will appreciate the Japan product.
The strong style is what you're talking about. Yeah.
The indie style.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with Jack Perry. Obviously, he's got that big bushy beard. He's doing I think he's still kind of doing a similar heel thing to it.
So.
But this is essentially his return to the United States.
Oh, this is his first match.
Well, no, I mean he has done a couple things over in Japan.
Oh, right.
He made his premiere over in Japan, but I believe this is his first time wrestling since August with the whole CM Punk fiasco. So it's interesting to see both of them wrestling in different companies. Now for the big news. After 21 years, Scott D'Amore has been given the axe.
I didn't realize he had been with the company for that long. I thought there was a break in there. But...
He moved up. I mean, he started out low on the totem pole, and he did his work.
Originals.
2003.
Team Canada.
He did his work, and he made it basically all the way right to the top of the mountain. He saved it from the trash heap of history.
Yep.
He's beginning to rebuild it, and they let him go. They replace him with this guy from Anthem, Anthony Ciccione. I don't know how you say his name. I haven't seen any reason given. The talent is very upset.
Yeah, I would be too.
They are very... Well, because, when you read a story like this on the heels of the Vince McMahon situation, your first thought is, oh my God.
What's he accused of?
What the hell are we going to read? What new lawsuit is going to come out or something? What's going to happen? But none of that seems to have surfaced so far. It all seems to be differences of opinion. He wants to take the company in a different direction than Anthem does or something. I don't know.
It kind of sounds to me like he helped build TNA back up, rebrand it as TNA, really clean their name up, brings it to the point where it will start growing, and then Anthem's like, okay, we'll take it from here. Get out of here.
It seems like he did all the hard work. I mean, and he had to do a lot of hard work. Deal with a lot of hardships, doing a lot of work developing talent, and then giving it away, having them leave.
He was there through the Jeff Jarrett days, through the Hulk Hogan days, through the Dixie Carter days, through the Billy Corgan days. He's been there through all of that. Brings this company out of the mud and gets kicked out just as a thank you. That's ridiculous.
Tony Khan, I have your new director of operations.
Nah, not a bad idea.
I don't think he would be a bad addition to the team at all.
And now with a working relationship with WWE, and they bring in some random executive to take his place, it kind of, I wouldn't think TKO would have anything to do with that, but maybe they got in the ear of Anthem, or Anthem even looked at TKO and said, well, they don't have any wrestling guys at top and they're doing okay. Why don't we try that?
This doesn't feel permanent to me. It feels interim. This new guy that they brought in to replace D'Amore, he's just there in the interim to keep everything from burning down, to manage the crisis that will inevitably come from the talent. And there is some major crises. I guess there was some kind of a Zoom call or something where the talent was just beside themselves and could not understand it at all.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be any kind of major exodus of talent just because there's not a lot of places for them to go, but they're going to be very dissatisfied.
Yeah.
And the guy literally got put through a flaming table last year by Bully Ray. I mean, he is as committed to the company as anyone.
That's whose opinion I'd like to hear on this, is see what Bully Ray has to say.
That's true. Yeah, let's watch Busted Open. Check out Busted Open this week. I'm sure he's going to share it. So we give our condolences to TNA and Scott D'Amore because they
big loss.
They've needed each other for the last 20 years, and it does not spell well for the future. Although it could be very, very good for
it's too early to tell for sure, but
for D'Amore. Up next, a new sports streaming conglomerate has been announced.
This was interesting.
A combination of, I want to make sure I get this right, ESPN, Fox, and Warner Brothers Discovery. They're combining their forces into one
ESPN, Disney, right? Okay.
Right, sort of state-of-the-art. And I looked at the list. It touched on every sport. It was MMA, baseball, football, soccer, cycling, running. I mean, they just ran through every sport. No professional wrestling listed on there at all. But the fact that you've got Fox and Warner Brothers Discovery and Disney/ESPN, I don't know. It kind of makes you wonder, does this spell disaster for Tony Khan's plans in WWE. Is this why they did a 1-year extension? Because Warner Brothers wanted to lock up this deal on this streaming service, which is supposed to start this fall.
Wow, it's quick.
Are they, like, do they already have that stuff in the grinder, in the meat grinder, working? And they wanted to keep Tony on the line.
Well, if that's the case, I mean, it's not like WWE already has a deal with Netflix, so it's not like they're going to go on
For
this.
Raw.
Oh, SmackDown's with Universal. What's CW? What company is that? For Netflix or NXT?
Somebody else. I can't remember. I looked it up, but it's somebody else outside of the big 2 or 3.
Yeah, unless they make a deal for SmackDown or the pay-per-views or something.
No. I mean, the fact that professional wrestling wasn't included on their list of all products.
Yeah, I understand that. And if they're thinking wrestling is more entertainment than sports because it's staged, because it's scripted, then maybe they didn't include that in the list. They could still add AEW to it because they're with Warner Brothers, and because Raw has a deal with Netflix, they have the streaming locked down on that side, so I don't think they would bring in WWE, but maybe. I don't know. I don't know what this means for AEW. It could... Yeah, if that ends up on Max, which would be part of the Warner Brothers deal, then, yeah, there's no place for AEW to go unless they just stick to their Ring of Honor streaming that they already have set up and just turn that into an AEW Ring of Honor New Japan type
Yeah, you're
deal.
right. It seems like this would be its own joint venture, separate. You'd have a separate app. It would be called something different. And you'd have to download that, probably pay for it separately. It would be an entirely different thing. So you're right. It might not spell disaster for it if you consider that it's probably wrestling is probably more entertainment oriented and would still be on Max or wherever. That makes more sense.
And I don't know though. Could they go to Max if they have this new thing as part of it? I don't know.
Whether you categorize it as sports or not, I don't know.
Yeah, we just have to keep an eye on it. It's still too early to say for sure, but it very well could ruin any of their chances of doing any streaming like that.
Let's move on. Let's jump into WWE. The great cleansing has begun. We knew that this was coming. We didn't know how deep it would go. We didn't know exactly who would be impacted. Obviously, only time will tell. There wasn't a whole lot to erase when it comes to the John Laurinaitis situation, as he had already basically...
he was gone from last year.
He had already kind of taken care of himself. Obviously, there's huge questions over what's going to be deleted from the Vince McMahon perspective. How do you separate that man from the product? But we have already seen the Royal Rumble lineup change. Mm-hmm. We've already seen what we can infer from how the Royal Rumble wound up, some significant storyline changes as a result of not having Brock Lesnar present. And now we're seeing that Brock has been taken off the 40 Years of WrestleMania cover for 2K24, which has been teased over and over again. It'll be interesting to see if you can't put Braun Breaker in his place there. I wonder who you're going to replace him with.
I'm sure they can find somebody over 40 years.
I mean...
Hillbilly Jim or something.
I don't think they're going to put a Hillbilly Jim on there. But I mean, how deep does it go, I guess is my question. I mean, they're taking him off of special edition covers of video games. I mean, I don't know. That just doesn't seem... If it's invalid, why wouldn't you fight that? Like, to me, it just adds credibility to the lawsuit and the claims of it.
Yeah, I mean... I think I said it last week. Even if even if significant proof comes out that all the allegations are false, you still got the stink on everything. So you gotta whitewash everything and get all these people with McMahon and Lesnar and whoever else, they need to be gone regardless. How, like you said, how you get Vince completely cleaned out of the product is going to be near impossible.
Yeah, you can't wash him out. He's the black in the Black Sox. I mean, you can't get rid of him.
Right.
No matter how many times you wash. Do we see Brock Lesnar in the WWE again?
I doubt it.
Is this the end?
I think so.
I mean, he's made a very nice paycheck from them for not wrestling, which is essentially
absolutely.
what this will be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think this is a right to cancel the contract or back out. They're going to owe him millions and millions of dollars for the next X years.
I'm certainly no lawyer. There may be some sort of loophole since he's not by name in the lawsuit. It's just inferred that that's who it is, or is inferred the right word even? I don't know. But
Implied.
Thank you. But yeah, I don't see how they could bring him back, at least not for 20 years.
What he's done is, let's assume that the lawsuit is true for a second. What he's done, very questionable, social faux pas, out the wazoo, all that stuff, right?
Now, but based on what you've said in the video series, in the video series about the lawsuit, which definitely go check out, he was involved, but didn't really.
Yes.
How to say this delicately, but he didn't really do anything. Nothing really happened.
He requested some very specific videos
Right.
from Janelle Grant, according to the lawsuit.
But there was never anything actually physical between them.
He flew to
He tried to, right.
there, was unable to due to he was apparently too drunk to perform.
Inebriated, yeah.
And was basically thrown back onto a plane and left, and requested subsequent videos even after the NDA was signed after the fact, like months later.
So definitely some scummy shit, but nothing.
So this is why I'm saying, like,
legally damning.
Like,
I guess is if I don't even know how to put it properly.
Well, the real question is, what's the standard?
Right.
Like, I can see. Let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that he is, let's say, too hot to touch in the United States. That doesn't stop the Saudi Arabian prince from wanting to see him perform.
Right.
So he goes to Saudi Arabia and he performs, or maybe the news doesn't spread quite as well in a place like India or whatever. Maybe they don't hear about this illicit lawsuit quite as much. And then now you've got your foot in the door. Now all of a sudden, now we're having more and more pay-per-views overseas, and Brock Lesnar's now becoming a part of the storyline, and you can't not have him at SummerSlam in Paris or wherever you end up doing it next.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the claims of the lawsuit are true, the only thing that I think would stop Brock Lesnar from appearing in a storyline on TV for the WWE universe would be his association with Vince.
Right.
Which is
damning enough.
It's so crazy to me that his simple association with Vince McMahon is dirtier than the actual claims in the lawsuit.
Right.
Like requesting those kinds of videos, getting them, basically actively participating in sex trafficking. If you are traveling for a particular place for a particular experience.
I mean, yeah, maybe
that's essential participation in sex trafficking. That's you going to the product instead of the product going to you.
Right. And maybe, again, I don't know the legal terms, but maybe the act of wanting to be involved, even though he wasn't
looks terrible
physically involved,
Yep.
that could still be enough for something. I don't know.
It's clear to me that they're in damage control mode right now.
Right.
And
they should be.
Only time will tell, but I don't know. It's the fact that they're scrubbing him from everything. Pay close attention to where you don't see Brock Lesnar and where it would be appropriate in the future if you want to know what's going on, because they're going to cleverly take everything. They're going to have someone scrub everything.
And again, this may be enough for him to never be in the Hall of Fame or whatever the case may be.
Keep an eye on the roster. See if he gets taken off the roster and whatnot. There's some interesting things to note there. Related to that, so John Laurinaitis has spoken out publicly for the first time, at least his lawyer has, and he's claiming that he's a victim. He's a victim of Vince McMahon. And I think we knew that this would happen. I think he knew strategically that he couldn't attack Janelle Grant because she's too much of a sympathetic figure.
Yep.
But
he's got to say something.
What he could do is line himself up to turn state's witness or to become a supporter in the civil action as long as they agree to leave him alone. And then he can point the finger at Vince, the big fish, and talk about how bad he is and how terrible he is. Maybe even file a joint claim with them against him to try to really pile on WWE, pile on TKO. One interesting thing of note that I saw that I didn't realize, Ari Emanuel's daughter has been working at WWE for a few years.
Really?
Yeah, there was a quote, and I can't remember exactly who it was from, but he was saying that, like, anybody that thinks that Ari Emanuel is not taking this seriously doesn't know that his daughter has worked for WWE for multiple years.
Wow.
So the fact that he wouldn't take this... So, to me, that lends some credibility to the way that they're handling it and why they're attacking it the way that they are, very aggressively. Certainly more aggressive than they've handled any other claims in the past.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So it's interesting that Laurinaitis is clearly, to me, again, that only adds to the guilty situation. What would anybody do if they were in that situation?
Yeah, but
this is exactly what they do.
Again, going back to your breakdown to your video series, if he really felt like a victim, then any of the times that they were, I guess I should say, allegedly alone, he didn't need to do anything. He could have just told Vince.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I did it. Yeah. It was great. Right. Yeah.
So you claiming yourself to be a victim is complete BS.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm
you participated willingly, you're done.
It makes a lot of sense for John Laurinaitis' lawyer to go to Janelle Grant's lawyer and to say, "Look, I am not the big fish. I am not who you want here. Even if all of this is true, I'm not the one that you want. I'll help you get the one that you want."
Right.
So it's terribly unfortunate, but unfortunately, you can't have all the justice all the time.
Yeah.
And because we have not managed to pull in every single dark historical event, I can't wait to hear about how this is linked to, the death of Chris Benoit or, what happened with Eddie Guerrero or anything. And every single bad thing that's ever happened in the world of professional wrestling seems to get pulled into this. Subsequently, I'm trying to remember exactly how this was. Laurinaitis publicly came out and said that he was aware of sexual assault claims that Ashley Mazzaro made way back in 2006. So let's back up slightly. Ashley Mazzaro was a performer for WWE back in the aughts, the 2000 and so's. Back during
2005,
the Divas period, we'll call it, right? That was the beginning of the Divas period. And she subsequently, unfortunately, had a lot of mental health issues associated with it. And I believe sometime after 2010, she self-deleted. There was I want to say it was 2014 or something. No, maybe it was later than that. I don't remember exactly.
When she died? No, that was just a year or two ago. It was just recently.
There was, but she was outside of the wrestling world for a significant period of time.
Years.
It was well documented. There were issues. There had been sort of rumors and talk about some sexual misconduct that had maybe contributed to it. Her boyfriend at the time came out.
Paul London.
Yep, Paul came out and talked very publicly about it. And now, basically, John Laurinaitis is coming out and saying, yep, we were aware of the claims. He talked specifically about one overseas show that they did in Kuwait, where I think in 2006, where I believe an actual sexual assault and rape took place in Kuwait, in some dorm room or something like that.
A soldier, apparently, who, under the guise of being a medical doctor, giving her an examination, apparently drugged her and something along those lines.
But then subsequent to that, they've also talked about how Vince McMahon was physically involved with her as well. Again, rumors of it. So again, this is just like we mentioned at the beginning when this first broke last week.
More stuff is going to come out.
It's just going to dredge all the way up to the top. And
which it should, obviously.
You're really going to understand, I think, if you didn't understand before, Vince McMahon had creative control. He had complete and total control. And it's easy to forget, but there's no bad or good thing that ever happened in WWE that Vince McMahon didn't have his grubby little mitts all over.
And in Ashley's case, when she said she went before Vince and Laurinaitis and a few others of the board or whoever, the recurring theme, which we see in the current lawsuit too, was best to keep this to yourself because it's not good for business if this got out. You mentioned that before when talking about the lawsuit that Vince was very much the business comes first.
Yep.
The business is the most important thing. Don't do anything to hurt the business.
That was the mantra.
Yeah.
At the company. Yep.
So that's how all this stuff would get swept under the rug, because either one, people were scared of Vince and what he would do, or two, they drank the Kool-Aid and said the business is the most important thing.
Yeah. So this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about when it adds credibility to the lawsuit when you're able to connect these dots that seem like this constellation of unrelated events, and now all of a sudden this lawsuit comes out and you're drawing these dots and you're like, oh my gosh, it's this
big picture.
It all makes sense now, kind of a situation. So
that's too bad. I always liked her. She was not a great wrestler, but she was a great personality. I always was a fan of hers.
Yeah, and so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what other constellations get picked together and what, if any, validity comes of this. I mean, if anything, this makes me want the lawsuit to be successful if it's true, so that a lot of these things we can actually have a real, thorough, what do we call it, truth and reconciliation, committee come out and actually scrub this stuff and get to the bottom of what happened.
Not to put too much emphasis on this, but I was thinking the other day, this is just a lawsuit. It's not a criminal case yet.
No.
When does it get to that point, if at all?
We're going to be reviewing this on, I think, today's show. We're going to be touching on that.
There we go. There's
so
your plug.
if you haven't watched it, check it out. Definitely check it out. But the basic idea is that the lawsuit is asking the court to throw out the NDA. Because if you throw out the NDA, then you can go to a prosecutor and share all this information and whatever background information, whatever details, whatever evidence you might have, anybody else that might come forward. You can come forward and you can actually, the other thing you can do is you can actually sue for more. The NDA sort of locks you up and says, you've got your $3 million according to the NDA and you're going to shut up. Well, now you can go before a jury and you can get punitive damages that might be associated with it. You can sue for more money, sue for medical costs, all these other things. And you can, of course, reach out to other members of the public now that you can talk publicly about it and say, this is what happened. And if you've been affected by it, step up. And I can tell you, even news agencies, Vice in particular, of course, is interested in this story. Yeah. And they're even calling. If you had an interaction with Vince McMahon, we want to know about it. Call us and let us know. So there's a whole ecosystem that's popping up associated with this. One last note, and I just want to bring this up because it's so rare. On Monday Night Raw, there was a fatal four-way tag match between the New Day, the Creed Brothers, Imperium, and DIY. You need to check it out. Spoiler alert, DIY goes over. Meaning that they're in contention for the titles. That's what this is for.
Awesome.
Definitely worth the watch. You need to check it out. It's better than NXT. It's at least as good as the wrestling as you see on AEW. So I would highly recommend you guys checking it out. It's about 15 minutes long, but it was very good.
Awesome.
High action, very interesting. AEW. Unfortunately, only a little bit of good news on the front of AEW. Fight Forever's price has been dropped pretty significantly.
I might buy it now.
$59.99 down to $29.99. Probably not a great indicator of things to come.
It's also been out for over a year now.
It's their first. Has it been over a year? No,
it's been just about a year.
It's been about a year, I think. Yeah. I think it was
when Cody Rhodes was still leaving.
So he's been in WWE for 2 years now. Because he is part of the game, yeah.
Yeah, didn't he make his premiere at the
WrestleMania 30?
No, he made his premiere at the Royal Rumble. He came out as number 30 and won.
No, he came out at WrestleMania.
I'm sorry, the previous WrestleMania, 38. He came out. Yeah, okay, I'm getting everything right. I don't know. I thought Fight Forever came out earlier than that. Okay, anyways.
That was 2023. Okay, June 28th.
2023. Okay, so about 9 months it's been out. 8 months. Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. So, obviously some complaints over gameplay on it. I don't know. It seems like they're desperate for the next version to come out, so we'll see who's on it and what happens. But that struck me as an interesting, probably not great situation for them. Mm-hmm. On the talent front, Cash Wheeler is in trouble. If you may or may not remember, there were some questions over whether he was going to be able to make the trip over to Wembley Stadium.
Yep.
About, what was it, a week, less than 2 weeks. It was maybe a week before All In Wembley Stadium last year, that incredible show that they did. There was a question over whether FTR was going to be there because Cash Wheeler was wielding a gun during a road rage incident in Tampa, Florida, Pensacola, Florida, somewhere in Florida. They are actually going to go forward, and they are actually going to prosecute him. He apparently went to court, pled not guilty. They let him go on $2,500 bond or whatever, and now they're actually going to pursue him. And there's a pretty hefty fine, and there's like 5 years in jail, potentially. So I don't know. That could be the end of FTR. I mean, he's probably not going to get 5 years, but definitely doesn't look good, and definitely doesn't bode well for FTR. I mean, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm not putting them in any storylines.
Yeah, I assume Dax would just go to singles.
I was going to say, how do you sell Dax as a singles performer?
He does good when he's in his singles matches. He could transition easily.
I think he could transition, but I think it'd be a tough sell. I mean, the tag team is much less crowded than the main roster is, so it doesn't bode well for either one of them.
Yeah.
When you link yourself to somebody else, you got to be real careful. Some good news from Collision. Ratings rebounded this week, back up, I think, 404,000. Back up where they were before.
No Royal Rumble this week.
No Royal Rumble, which is precisely why. It's interesting to see, we always talk about how they're kind of catering to different groups, but I saw a clip going around Twitter of people leaving Wednesday's show, Dynamite, walking out, and reports of them saying, I'm done with this, I'm sticking with WWE. Literally walking out of the...
They say when?
The Phoenix.
When they were walking out?
No, and it was clearly in between matches. I mean, I could see from the background the way it was lit and everything. It was definitely in between matches.
Because Sting and Darby won the tag titles in the main event, so...
Yeah, I mean, that
was pretty big.
I mean, it was an A show for me. I mean, I thought it was a very good show. I certainly would have liked to have been there live. But again, maybe that just makes the case for us even stronger, because you're catering to different people, and if you go to one and expect to see the other, you might be disappointed. I mean, they're different enough that you could actually have that happen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the big news in AEW.
Tony Khan's big announcement.
So, well, let me ask you a question. Let's go to that. So Tony Khan makes a big announcement. He comes out and he says, we're going to have a special show in Boston. What is he calling it?
Big Business.
Big Business. We're going to have a special show called Big Business in Boston.
Special episode of Dynamite.
On March 13th. It's in Boston. And that's all he announces.
Right.
What is the strategic advantage of doing that, especially when you've got the internet all over your ass?
Yeah, the internet. So I think there's a couple things going on here. Definitely the people on the internet are freaking out because all of his big announcements are not big announcements. At this point, though, and I think I've said this before, I think he's leaning into that and he's trolling people. So he's making his announcement sound not all that important. But for people like you and me, when we break down this announcement, we're like, okay, it's in Boston.
So you think they're intentionally hiding Easter eggs like they did in the corner of the announcement stuff with the dollar signs and everything?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It's in Boston. The show is called Big Business. What free agents out there rumored to be joining AEW are from Boston and have a big money, big business type gimmick.
Associated with boss, BOSS, dollar signs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think he's trolling people with these announcements now because he knows his past ones were legitimately lame ducks. But now he's heavily hinting that Mercedes Moné is going to be debuting at that show. And it's just for the hardcores like us who read between the lines.
The perfect example of how you're catering to different products.
Exactly.
Because
like you just said.
You would be entirely...
And he finished out the announcement saying this is going to be a humongous show. It's going to change the industry, blah, blah, blah. So
they're at TD Bank, which is a big venue.
Yep.
One other good piece of news, so that same Dynamite that I said in Phoenix where people were walking out, they sold it out. It was a sellout. 5,000.
I was wondering about that. It sounded loud.
5,000 tickets.
That's good.
I mean, they sold it out. I don't even know if there were any other areas to open up because it's a reasonably sized venue.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they couldn't sell 5,000. I mean, Phoenix, that's not a wrestling town.
Right.
I'm very surprised.
That might be what they need. They said they're not going to the smaller markets anymore. So,
Well, what does that mean? Is Albany a small market?
I
They were going to like Mississippi.
well, yeah, I think they're not going to the outlying areas that they generally don't go to. They're going to go to the Chicagos and maybe the Albanys. They're going to go to the bigger towns, bigger
Philadelphia,
cities. Right.
Florida,
Right.
Texas.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 5,200. They sold about 5,200 tickets,
That's good.
which is very good. They're still opening up sections for Revolution, but again, it's still. I think they're almost at 16,000 tickets sold for Revolution.
Good.
So very good. I mean,
Especially, that'll be, what's that, March 3rd? So
March
that'll
3rd.
be before this supposed debut.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that raises the question again we talked about before. They've signed international guys like Jurlistico. They signed indie darlings like the bounty hunter Brian Keith.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest signing they've had recently was Edge, and he didn't really move the needle that
Deanna
much.
Purrazzo.
Deanna Purrazzo, yep. Is Mercedes going to move the needle for AEW?
You know, the women's division is getting pretty crowded over there at AEW. They're going to have to start giving them more screen time,
More time,
if
absolutely.
we really want to live it up. Or, like I keep pitching, give them their own show. Give them Friday night. Make Friday night ladies' night.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could do a lot of good with it. You know, I don't know how much more of a draw she would be besides what they already have. Like, what does she bring that they don't already have? I don't see what it is. It's just another reason to show up. It allows more flexibility in the schedule. You know, she can step in and somebody else can step out for a couple of weeks. It allows you to absorb injuries.
I mean,
a little bit better.
if they did a little better with marketing and actually put it out there that she is Sasha Banks, maybe, you know, getting that WWE fan.
They don't own it.
I know, but
They get in trouble.
they can do that without actually doing that. You know, get her picture out there, get her face out there, say she's a multi-time champion, whatever.
Right, they're doing the boss thing,
Right.
which is in line. I mean, they're doing what they can. I want to know what does she do first? So she comes in. You got Deanna Purrazzo and Storm doing
She's
this
got to
thing
go for the top title.
over the
There's nothing else
title.
she can do.
There's no reason. I mean, there's really no Britt Baker. Do we do something with Britt Baker? I mean, that would be the only non-title type situation. They need women's tag titles. I'm going to call it. I know we complain about too many titles or whatever, and maybe there are. Maybe they need to take the trios away. And I'm not arguing that the women's division needs trio titles or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you got that many women. You got that much screen time. You need to have tag. You need to have tag titles. I think you do.
I mean, a natural thing to start would be somehow facing Willow Nightingale, because that was the match she got injured in, was against Willow in Japan.
Redemption.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they could build some heat on that.
If she doesn't go right for the title right away, that's a good first
I don't think
feud.
they should put the title on her. I don't think they should. I think she's a draw without the title. She doesn't need it.
Yeah.
She doesn't need it. What does putting the title on her do? You could give Purrazzo a nice shine.
It could build the title.
I don't think it should be on Toni Storm right now.
No.
She's not the right lady to hold that title.
She's
right
still a crowd favorite, but I mean,
Giving her the title didn't work. It didn't work. Didn't do anything for the title. Didn't do anything for her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think it's been very good for her. But I think and putting it on somebody like Britt Baker doesn't do a lot of good. Statlander doesn't do a lot of good. But I think you give it to Deanna Purrazzo, let her hang on to it for a little while. She's face right now, so you can let her hang on to it
she's
for a
kind of
little
a
while.
tweener. Her attitude is more heel than face, but she's
Well,
going against the.
If you have Mercedes Moné come in, she's got to go heel, right?
I would assume so. Yeah.
You got to let her go heel. I mean, that could set
She'll
up
get
well
cheered
for a
in the
title match.
beginning, but she's got to go heel. Yeah.
She's the kind of woman that I think would win and go over no matter what, though. You could have her run up all the way to All In. I mean, we're 5 months out from All In at this point. By the time she premieres,
7 months. It's in August. March, April, May, June, July, August. 6 months. Sorry.
6 months out, we could start a nice slow build up with her and get something good. Or like you said, do something short with Willow just to get revenge. Willow does a job for her or something like that. Just to put her over. All right, cool. Well, Matt, what do you want to talk about? do you want to talk about? What do you think? We haven't touched on it yet. We've buried the lead.
Man.
Thanks for being with us for this long. But let's talk about the news that everybody else is talking about, that I'm sure Dan wishes he were here to talk about.
All right, I'm gonna ask the question right off the bat. Is this a work or is this a shoot?
All right, so can we just take a step back and talk about the landscape for a minute here? Okay. The day before the Vince McMahon lawsuit drops, which is 2 days before. We're recording this in front of a studio audience, by the way. The day before the lawsuit drops, which is 2 days before the Royal Rumble, which is the beginning of the road to WrestleMania, TKO comes out and they announce they're adding a new member to their boring directors. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is coming back. Can you smell it? Can you smell it? He gets what has got to be one of the most unbelievable offers in the history of business, let alone sports entertainment. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the equivalent of what happened when TKO was formed. And you've got WWE massively undervalued, taking 49% of the ownership of the company. Ari Emanuel's Big Daddy to everybody. You basically have Vince McMahon on the same level as Dana White, which I'm sure Vince took great offense to. All this in an attempt to survive, right? You basically have that same situation. Dwayne gets, I want to say, I read $30 million in stock, TKO stock. He gets a seat on the board. He gets his name back, something that nobody's ever gotten back ever. Mm-hmm. You either walk in with it. I guess you could sue for 20 years if you're Ryback and you could eventually win it back. You could. But they gave it to him back. Probably one of the most valuable pieces of intellectual property they have next to, like, WrestleMania.
Yep.
Probably the most valuable piece. They just give it to him. And then they promise him a WrestleMania 40 main event match. And 12 hours later, the lawsuit drops. Mm-hmm. The Wall Street Journal breaks a story about it. Okay?
Yep.
And now, all of a sudden, after having one comeback promo on Raw a couple of weeks prior to this, now all of a sudden, it's like it's 2008. Even earlier than that. It's like it's 2005 again. Mm-hmm. And he's back. He's cutting promos. He's tweeting left and right about it. He's standing in his nice snazzy suit in front of the stock exchange and telling everybody how excited he is to be back. Meanwhile, Vince McMahon tips his hat and steps away. And now you got him coming out, and what are you going to do? You're going to have him face Roman Reigns? I'm sorry, you're going to have him face Seth Rollins? No, you're going to have him face Roman Reigns. The only problem being is that steps all over our good friend Cody. And all the plans, right? That's exactly what we said. Everybody was pissed at the end of WrestleMania 39 when they didn't end the story, but they said, we're just investing for the future. WrestleMania 40 is where everything is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And here we are, 200 and some odd days later, and The Rock comes in, steps all over Cody's toes.
Cody wins the Rumble for a second time.
You can't change that, right? You can't change the winner. It's too late to do that. You can shift some people around.
Comes out on Raw last week, says he's picking Roman. They send Seth out to change his mind, which we talked about on the show last week. Then it was SmackDown this past week.
Big showdown.
Cody comes out, faces Roman, says, I'm going to face you, but not at WrestleMania.
The fans have clearly spoken on this topic.
Yeah.
That clip was so upside down. I think in 36 hours it had 96,000 likes and over 536,000 dislikes. The Rock has the most disliked video in WWE history. That's something you're not going to read on the TKO financial report. Holy crap. Has he found a way to get heat? Has he stepped on the babyface and gotten heat?
Okay, so revisit my question from the beginning. Is this a work in order to make Cody Rhodes a bigger underdog babyface? Or is this a shoot and Rock is like, yeah, I'm going to face Roman, not you, Cody. You're going to go out on SmackDown and give me your match.
I think that this started out as a I think that this started out as a shoot. This is what I think they're trying to do. They're trying to slip on a banana peel, do a perfect backflip, and land it. I think that they looked at the Vince McMahon situation that was laying in front of them, and they went, oh my God.
They lost CM Punk. They lost Brock Lesnar. They needed a big name for WrestleMania.
How are we going to do this? We pull The Rock in. We do everything we can to convince him to come in because he's got no reason to come in. Mm-hmm. He's got a thriving career. Yes, there have been a couple of bumps in the road, but the writers are back. The actors are back. Moana 2 is about to hit. They just announced that's coming out in November, so he's going to be very busy doing all that kind of stuff. He's got all of his own side projects, Black Adam 2, whatever else is coming out. How do you convince that man to step away from the successful career he's built and get him to do this? You make him an offer he can't refuse. And this is what you do. And you just blindly promise him whatever he wants. Now that they're into it, they're far enough out that they're reading the fan base, and now they're trying to turn it into a work.
Reading the fan base. They're just listening to the live crowd.
That's it. They're trying to make it look like they intentionally did this.
It's back to 1997 when the crowd is screaming, Rocky sucks.
And yes, exactly. And what did they do? What did they do when that happened? He pivoted, right? He pivoted. He became the bad guy that he wanted to become, the bad guy that they let him become on a whim. Vince didn't want to do it, apparently, but Vince went out of character and made him a bad guy, and now they're trying to make him into a bad guy. But that still has to taste bad for Cody. If you're Cody, that still has to. He's chasing the title his father never got. And now you're going to tell him he's going to win it at WrestleMania 41? Or doesn't have a nice ring to it.
Or Saudi, or SummerSlam, or whatever.
And who cares, right? It's supposed to be a WrestleMania moment. You're supposed to end the story at WrestleMania, right? So it's just going to be, unsatisfying. It's going to be less than satisfying for everybody in the entire process.
So let's say it started as a shoot. They're reacting to the fans now, and they're pivoting it into a work. So how do they change it so that it goes back to Cody and Roman? Is there any way to do it smoothly?
There is 100 ways you could swerve this in a number of directions.
Roman attacks Rock and injures him.
Everybody's shooting down the idea of a fatal three-way.
Yeah,
which is kind of what everybody initially kind of leaked, was like, well, I guess, I don't know, do you have The Rock win the title? If you don't have The Rock win the title...
I would think not. I think if they stick with The Rock, then it's going to go to Dan's theory a week or two ago about Roman beating Hogan's record.
And he's going to hold it for forever.
Right.
And he's going to throw it... Right, okay, right. Other people are saying WrestleMania Night 1 and then WrestleMania Night 2. Right. I just don't think...
And screw you, Seth.
That's what's going... The problem is they've painted themselves into a corner where you can't get out of it without screwing somebody hard.
Yeah. If Roman is going to be the main event of 2 nights, that rules out Seth, that rules out any of the women, that rules out...
It pushes everybody
Gunther's
else.
reign as Intercontinental, whatever they want to do.
Everybody can't be in the main event at WrestleMania.
Of course.
We understand that. But he is going to take the shine off.
But can someone be in 2 main events on WrestleMania?
I don't know. And then you still have, and not to complicate things even further, but so now that you've got The Rock coming in and he displaces a lot of water, he pushes a lot of pressure out onto the other titles now. What does Mr. Money in the Bank do? Is he literally going to hold on to that case and not do anything with it?
Until the next Money in the Bank.
Is he going to challenge Logan Paul? Is that what this is going to be? He's going to cash in his Money in the Bank just to try to take the U.S. Championship off of Logan Paul?
He's going to go for the NXT North American.
Do you give the title? Dan, you're out there. Do you give the title to The Rock at WrestleMania? Does he win or lose? Does he win or lose?
He's getting on Mike, even though he can't talk.
Title.
Speak softly and carry a big stick.
So I can't talk. That's why I'm not on here. Shocking. Okay.
Take 5 minutes. Tell us, does The Rock win the title?
No, The Rock. The Rock is going to come out and say he doesn't want the title. I want the head of the table. You face Cody for the title. 2 matches. WrestleMania. That's it.
So he's not...
Gunther or someone will go play Seth Rollins for the belt, and
Okay, so this plays into my long-term theory, which is
The Rock's gonna say face.
it's Roman Reigns' fall from grace.
Yes.
He takes out Roman, wins the title, takes over head of the table, and then the next night drops the title to Cody.
Rock
And
will
Cody
come
has the
out
story.
somehow. It'll be like, I don't want
He doesn't
the
even
belt.
want the title.
I'm
He
too
just
old.
wants
I
head
don't
of
want the
table.
belt. I'm not the face of the company, but I'm the head of the table, and I want that. And that's what it's going to be about. And then meanwhile, the belt is going to go. They'll do night one with Cody. Cody will win, get the belt, and then it'll be about Roman Reigns. Or no, could be 2 nights. Rock could be night 1. Loses. Roman Reigns keeps on the head of the table, and then Sunday loses the belt to Cody.
Does he main event both nights?
I think the 3 of them need to main event the entire WrestleMania. Night 1, night 2, between the 3 of them. That's their only outcome right now. That's the only way they can do it. It's the only way they can change it. I think it's a work. I think they're playing with everybody. I think Cody Rhodes is always playing to win the title and will.
You don't think it was a shoot from the beginning that
No.
they brought The Rock on to cover up the Vince McMahon?
Look at the attention Cody's getting. He's skyrocketed. Everyone's rooting for him, has flyers and shirts and everything for him. When he comes out, it's great.
So
It's
you
a
think
perfect Triple H move. We are done. My brother said the same thing, and I said I have to educate you, Tom. Okay, I'm sure he's gonna watch. I had to educate you, Tom. It's no longer Vince. It's Triple H.
No,
Triple
yeah.
H trolls. Triple H plays games. He loves to trick the audience and the fans and the fan base. That's what he's doing.
So he sees the 500,000 dislikes, sees The Rock getting
yeah.
heat,
They knew
thinks
it.
it's the greatest thing in the world. But I want to ask about the
But
initial...
putting Cody over though.
Right.
It's making Cody even bigger.
The initial offer, though, that's what I want your opinion on. The initial offer to The Rock to bring him onto the board, to give him $30 million of stock, to give him his name back, to offer
That
him a
was all Vince
WrestleMania.
McMahon related.
You think that was inherited?
I think The Rock coming on board and getting everything that he got
Was to cover up Vince.
from a business standpoint
was to take-
was Vince. I don't think anything
That's a
with
shoot.
Vince-
So then that's a shoot.
yeah, everything with Vince had nothing to do with his WrestleMania match. That's all different.
And I guess there is a point to be made because The Rock did initially come out and talk about big plans for the future or
That
whatever.
said, Rock, I think, will take a hit because he's part of the company now too. Rock's gonna.
Well, he just cares about selling tickets at this
Right,
point.
but Rock at the end of the day is going to take one for the team because he's now on the board. He's going to be. He wants what's best for business. But I think it's going to be if they're smart. CM Punk's gone. They have 3 superstars at the top right now. Take the 3 of them. 2 matches. There's two big, clear things on the line. Head the table, the belt. Separate them. Do it the right way.
Roman
Yeah.
Reigns walks away, takes a break, fall
Cody-
from grace, done.
And Cody
Bloodline's
needs
done.
Cody
People keep
wants
talking
that
about
Sunday.
Solo Sikoa coming in and interfering in some way to try to have him
They
retain
can't
the
do that
belt
yet.
and that
They
kind of thing.
can't.
I mean, they.
Or if he does, Cody takes him out and still
was
goes
gonna
on
say-
to win.
I
Right.
mean,
Maybe that's a night 1 event.
The
Cody
Rock's
comes
not winning
out.
the
And,
belt. Let's be honest. I mean, what good comes from that? Rock's not winning the belt. However, he has no movies currently scheduled.
does he wrestle at all before WrestleMania? The Rock?
I wouldn't think
They're just
so.
going to build and build.
Unless
and
he
build.
goes to Saudi. Because
Yeah,
again,
no,
they've
that's
lost
true.
a couple of guys, so they need
This
to
is
fill
just-
that card.
This is for the head of the table. And so now they're going to come out and they'll do something along the lines of, I don't know how they're going to do it.
So you think he does? He loses head of the table first, then he drops the title to Cody, and Roman Reigns loses
That-
2
yeah,
matches in a row.
that's what would make the most sense. Cody has to be the main event of the second night. There's no
I
other
mean,
way to
now,
do it.
if this was a shoot, if this isn't a work, and they're trying to fix it, that's the only way of saving it. Either way, they have to do that. If this wasn't a work and now it's all falling apart, they have to separate them. You go, okay, we're gonna do Rock night 1. That will be head of the table. Cody Rhodes night 2. He wins the belt, leaves. Everyone's
And
happy.
Seth Rollins, you're the curtain jerk on night 1.
Yeah.
No, I mean not really. Well, yeah, he'll be on the main event, but like Seth Rollins should be fighting Gunther.
He'll be second night. I'm not sure what they're gonna do, and they keep saying I saw stuff all over the internet about how it's like, oh yeah, thanks Rock, we don't need you. Seth Rollins is like, oh, we don't need you. It's like, what's the work there? I
Or
don't
they
know.
do 2 matches right back to back.
Yeah, there'll be 4 main events at WrestleMania because you got to have the
It's
women's
not-
championship
yeah, it's
in
not
there.
the first time.
Well, I mean, no. They just say on Sunday night, Rock versus Roman Reigns, followed by Rock versus Cody Rhodes. I mean, come on.
No, they're not gonna do that.
Let me
on
put it this
night.
way. Okay, the guys had the belt for how many days?
Almost
1,300.
1,400.
Yeah.
The rule now is going to be, yeah, you'd be able to beat everyone, but can you have 2 matches in one night? I mean, come on, up the scales on them. I mean,
Yeah, but that just doesn't that hang on?
that's a great way
Well,
to do it. They can
they-
up the scales on him. He's had the belt for.
They could do that, but what they tend to do, though, like they did with the Royal Rumbles, is they have one to start, one to finish. They bookend them because they don't want people to get bored with the same match 2 in a row.
That's gonna make the title look kind of weak, though. I would think. I mean, you want Cody to beat the champion.
There's
that
an
is when
interesting
the
way of
champion's
spicing
there.
it up, and I think the three of them, some way.
Different
or another,
nights, I think you could retain
I think
that.
the three of them, some way or another, are going to be involved.
All right.
I sound ridiculous. I have to go.
I have a theory.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Last time this happened, he said Triple H didn't have a popular name. Remember?
Steve.
I'm just saying.
Theory is going to be Roman and Cody. Something's going to happen. One of the bloodline is going to come in and try to interfere. The Rock comes out, stops the interference, thereby taking down some of the bloodline while Cody finishes off Roman Reigns. Head on the
Or
table.
that could very well happen.
The
Or
Rock is supposed to have a match with him.
or like you said, Roman and Rock on night 1, Rock wins head of the table, then there will be no bloodline to interfere because the Rock is in charge.
That too.
So there will be no interference.
You know, just the fact that you're coming in with your voice like this and you're stepping in, that tells us that something's working here.
Yep.
Something's working here. So Paul Heyman would be very proud of what's happening right now.
Back over there.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Steve. Well, that...
Jeremy gets a free week to say what he wants.
What did I say? Did I say anything? I didn't say anything. You'd hardly argue with me at all. All right.
Not like you can right now.
That is all we have this time. I was very merciful to Dan this week. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let us know below what you think is going on. Lord knows it's all pure speculation at this point. Please tune in to the end of our series on the fall of Vince McMahon. Let us know what you want us to cover next. There's a lot going on right now. These deep dives are very interesting. We're going to jump back on the Falls Count Anywhere bandwagon next week.
Yep.
So please get ready. Check it out. Lots of excitement coming your way. Keep watching, and we'll keep wrestling with the business.